I want to take a few moments on this actually surprisingly cool evening in the Philippines. And I want to talk about, reflect on how my wife established her career in contrast as to how I did in that same period of time. So we're going to go back. My wife and I were both the same age. We're going to travel back to 1980. That's when both of us reached high school graduation. Now, when I graduated from high school, I had no intention of pursuing any education beyond that. I was never one to enjoy the education process. So I went to the straight to the labor force, and from that period, I'm taking that period, 1980, until 2004 when we met. So that's a 24-year period. So I worked odd jobs. I had gone through different phases, iterations, and actually towards the end of that, in the last half a dozen years or so, I was actually eking out a comfortable salary and that. But one close to the end of that, I was transitioning between locations and then was building up debt in order to fund that move and all of that. So I was stretching my finances at that time in 2004. Now, look, my wife, Lorenza, on the other hand, she graduated from high school in 1980. She went straight to college. She took a commerce degree, 4 years, graduated from that. Then she got her qualifications to work as an OFW abroad because her dream was to go abroad to support her family back home. And so she achieved that. She was able to get sponsored, and she got employment in Hong Kong for a few years. And then in 1992, she got sponsorship to go to Canada to work as caregiver. So then we're talking the period of 1992 until 2004, which is a 12-year period, 12-year span. And in that working in Canada, we're talking half the amount of time that I had from the same starting point because I didn't pursue college. I didn't work in any other countries. I worked straight in Canada. So by the time 2004 came around, when we met, she had maintained her steady employment in Canada. She lived in the highest cost of living city in Canada. She had accumulated enough savings to qualify for a mortgage for a condominium or a condo, and she had a loan for a car. On top of that, she was able to send a considerable amount of funds back to the Philippines, which in fact um, largely funded the building of completion of the home for their family back home. And on top of that achievement, she was able to pave the way for relatives to get sponsored into Canada. So, what I'm getting at there is not the fact that I'm not shaming myself for being lazy and her being efficient. I'm just bringing to light the the advantages and disadvantages that we both had. Canada offers a lot of social benefits when it comes to social aid. When people lose employment, there's benefits that are available that they can access. There are labor laws that are more prevalent in Canada than the Philippines. And of course, there's all like our healthcare care system and that. So Lorenza didn't have any of that when she was coming to Canada. She had to start from scratch, and basically, if she ever got homesick or wanted to, just pack it in, she could come back to the Philippines. But what's the benefit of that? She's going to lose all of her um, opportunity to reap those benefits in a developed country like Canada. And there's the infrastructure. I mean, the Philippines just do not compare to first world countries when it comes to uh, infrastructures, the comforts of living. But anyhow, getting back to the comparison, shame versus praise or whatever, it's not that. It's where I never had the urgency to have to do anything more than I did. I had that comfort level. There were times in that period where I was pushed, quote unquote, behind the eight ball, and I had to make fast decisions, make sacrifices, delay gratification, and take care of it. And those were financial, or those were work environments that I had to, pivot from. There were indeed times where I felt that I needed to act, and I did so. So there's that. But when we're talking about my wife, it's her story is just a microcosm of the Filipino success of those who go abroad. And let me share some interesting statistics on that. There are different ethnic cultures that have grown in Canada, especially over the last 30 years or so. And amongst those, we have your people who were born naturalized in Canada, like me. You have a big Chinese population. You have a big Indian Pakistani population, South Asians, and you have a lot of Filipinos. And then you have other ones to a lesser extent. Now, we'll call them the big four. Of the big four, when it comes to household income, per capita household income, the Philippines is basically lower than your Canadians, natural born Canadians, Chinese, and South Asians. And then the Filipinos trail behind. So if we talk, just uh, putting a number out there, say might have 100,000, 90,000, and then the Filipinos trail like 70 or 80. Then you have a statistic showing the ethnic culture with the highest employment rate. The Philippines go from down here with their lower income, they bump right up to the top. They are employed per capita more than any other ethnic culture in Canada. Then you have home ownership. Again, the Filipinos go straight from down there to the top. So they come over to Canada, work harder with less money, and take it further, rooting themselves, buying homes, raising their families. And on top of this, amongst the different cultures, you have, we're talking government structure here, there's basically three different levels of government. There's municipality, your provincial, and your federal. So out of all of these tiers of government, the highest participation, of course, is your native white or Caucasian or native Canadian. Then you have your Chinese and your South Asian, Indian, Pakistani, and they are very active in the political scene on all levels of government. And the Filipinos are basically non-existent in that. They don't, there might be scattered representation, but overall, they don't get involved in politics. And this is a key point because those cultures who get heavily involved in politics have the power to change policy to benefit their communities. So it just goes to show that the resiliency of the Filipino going abroad, grabbing hold of that opportunity, and making the most of it is really amazing. And it's not to shame any other culture. It's just to say that wow, they the hardships that they have in their own country that they face seems to hone their ability to make the most of when they get that opportunity and they seize it. And I recognize that as someone who comes into this country from an outsider. And trust me, people who grow up in Canada, who see immigrant who come to the country, ethnic communities, and who interact with the Filipino culture, they're always in reverence of the attitude of the Filipinos, the outgoing, the food, the rich culture that they bring, and they're easily able to assimilate into the culture. Maybe their familiarity with the English language helps there. And also, the Filipinos have that connection with the U.S. and the English culture. So maybe that's part of it. But I would say the largest part is their resilience to seizing an opportunity when they can get it. And I think for those who come to this country looking to perhaps settle in as a place where they could come here semi-annually or retire here, to recognize that maybe the Filipinos when they welcome you, maybe there's a little bit more there in it, such as they root for the Western opportunity. They 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 value that goal, and a lot of people that you meet here, if they've never stepped off the island, they know someone who has. Like they'll say, "Yeah, you're from Canada. I know someone who's there," and I'll say, "Oh, what city are they in?" And they'll try and remember the city, and I name a couple of cities. Say, yeah, that's the one. And it's funny, It's anyhow. I just wanted to get that message across, and I hope you can appreciate it. And if you have any thoughts, let me know. Leave your comments, and we'll see if we can help this message resonate with others. I'm really curious to see if anybody is. I'd be really curious to see how many people out there recognize this aspect of international travel and seeking opportunity. So I'll leave it at that. It's just a short video. Hopefully, you're enlightened by it, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you very much.